All right, my friends, today I have a special guest with me. This is Mike Elkins, professional sports fitness trainer.
Nutritionist.
There you go, nutritionist, the whole deal. He's my personal trainer, writes all my workouts and stuff like that, has for a while. Pretty awesome at what he does. Also a blue belt here at Gracie, Ohio, and has competed quite a bit. And the discussion we're gonna have today, it revolves around weight cutting. We had one of our students, one of our white belts, ask a question on our closed group on Facebook, like, you know, how to cut weight and should he cut weight? I can't even remember the discussion. I was like, man, you need to talk to Mike. And when it comes to weight cutting, for the vast majority of jiu-jitsu athletes, most of the competitions these days, you're going to weigh in day of, if not right before your match. I know at the IBJJF, you pretty much have to weigh in right before you go on the mat. And so I think it's a proper discussion to have, because I know a lot of folks out there want to cut that extra 5 to 10 pounds to get to that weight class below them and feel stronger and all that. But we're gonna talk about some of the repercussions. From my own perspective, I'm not a professional. I'm gonna leave that to him to explain, you know, the physicality and the physiology and all that stuff. For me, it's just anecdotal, what I've gone through myself. I've cut weight in the past, and I was very, very lean when I first started competing. I was 6'4", but I was 173 pounds. And that luckily was right on the cusp of my weight class. So usually I was able to weigh in pretty much fully hydrated, no problem. I'd have to be careful, I'd have to watch it a little bit. But one time, for example, I stood in line in 1999, I think it was, in Florida for the Pan Ams. I was a blue belt at the time, maybe it was 90, I can't remember. But we stood in line, it was terribly organized. You know, I was in line in the sun in Florida for 7 hours, I think, before I weighed in. And my target was 173. By the time I got to weigh in, I was afraid. I didn't want to drink anything. By the time I weighed in, I was 167 pounds. Now, that was terrible. And of course, but that was day before, right? And I was just telling him a story about a friend of mine who competed very high level. He was actually an Olympic wrestler, ended up competing in the UFC. He came here to Ohio for one of the professional events. And when he got here, he realized that it was day of weigh-ins, and he freaked out. And it was like something like 10 pounds. I'm like,
Big difference.
dude, like, why are you freaking out? Like, you're an Olympic wrestler. You guys probably cut 20 pounds. It's like, yeah, the day before, then you put an IV in. It's like, you're good to go the next day. Not day up. He was flipping out. He was so upset and freaked out. Huge difference. And so my personal suggestion, especially at white belt level, local tournaments, man, go in at the weight you're at. I mean, even at, man, maybe a few pounds, but
Like you're saying, if you're right there on the cusp of this weight class, that weight class, 3-4 pounds, big deal. You're talking 15 pounds. That's
especially
you can put yourself in jeopardy.
Yeah, especially a competition where you've got multiple. You're looking at doing multiple matches, right? And sometimes back to back.
Yeah.
You want to be fully hydrated and not going in there feeling lethargic and terrible. And I've done it. I've gone in and I've crashed, and I absolutely know. Yeah, some of it's nerves, but I had a lot of competitions. I competed a lot. It was mostly the fact that I was depleted, and it was hard for me to just come back in those third, fourth matches. Very difficult. So if you are going to cut weight, how do you suggest going about it? And what is the percentage that you would say as a day of? Like, how does one want to do that if they're 10 pounds above their weight class?
Okay, so we got a little bit of time for these tournaments that are coming up for everybody. Good 2-week stretch. You're safe to, if you want to cut 7, 8 pounds, that's totally doable. If you're wanting to cut 10 pounds 2 weeks out, you probably want to think about going where you're at. That's pretty drastic, because like what Robin's talking about, being depleted of all your energy, that's the last thing we want for a tournament. A lot of these guys think, well, if I can drop 10, 15 pounds, get in that weight class below me, I'm gonna be so much bigger, I'm gonna be so much stronger. But what happens when you're lighter and then weaker than these people that you're trying to go against? It defeats the whole entire purpose of dropping down, you know? So you might as well stay where you're at if it's that much of a weight cut. But, you know, if you're 5, 6, 7 pounds, my best method is cutting carbohydrates a lot, actually, because you'll lose water weight in that fashion. Carbohydrates, you know, carbohydrates hydrate with water. You take those out of your diet, you still train, you're gonna flush a lot of that water weight out. And you can see some drastic weight loss inside of a week doing it that way. I personally have dropped 6, 7 pounds in a week just by cutting my carbs, didn't miss a single meal, and my energy was still good. And that's what we're looking for, especially these day of weight cut or weigh-ins for these tournaments. Like, there's not a whole lot of time to smash some Gatorade, eat some oatmeal, sit back, relax. No, some of these, like Robin's talking about, you weigh in with your gi, and then you step right on the mat and you go right at it, you know? So there's zero time to eat energy chews or gummy bears or Gatorade, Pedialyte, stuff like that. We have the Arnold Fitness Expo coming up, and we'll be competing in that, and that one gives you a little bit of buffer time. So if you're going to be cutting carbohydrates leading up to that tournament, that's definitely a time where you can cut, you know, 5, 6, 7 pounds, drink some Gatorade.
Like, what, 3 weeks out right now?
About 2.
About 2 weeks.
A little over 2, yeah. So, you know, you step on your scale, you might have 3, 4 hours. That's plenty of time to get rehydrated with some Gatorade, eat some fruit, stuff like that. But yeah, I have found decreasing your carbohydrates and increasing your fats and keeping like your protein the same. Another thing that I like to see people do when they're cutting their carbohydrates and increasing their fat is keep those vegetables high. I know it's common knowledge, but people don't seem to do it.
And stay away from the alcohol.
Stay away from the alcohol, yeah, definitely. But it's the fruits and the vegetables that are going to give you those micronutrients to help you feel good and have those all the stuff, you know, you're drinking your Gatorades and everything, electrolytes and all those things like that. Those micronutrients in the fruits and vegetables is what's going to keep your energy high. So yeah, that's kind of my experience.
And I'll say, just anecdotally, if I compete or ever compete again, or when I did compete, I got to a certain point, and I told myself, like, just from bad experiences, I'm never doing that again. And what we like to say is trust in your jiu-jitsu, right? Like, and again, very anecdotal. This has just been in my experience, but every time I went up a weight division, I stayed a middleweight all the way until brown belt. I was 30 years old before, like, I started, you know, beefing up a little bit. And every time I went up in weight, I won. And there was always that fear, like, oh man, it's a 15-pound weight class. It's a lot of difference, right? If I'm going in at the bottom end of it, man, I know guys are cutting 10 pounds to get into that. But if they're cutting and I'm fresh,
yep,
right, that gives me an advantage in a way. Yeah, they were bigger and stronger, but man, an 8-minute match, I could wear a lot of those guys out, and I could tell some of those guys were just suffering before and even after the match. And man, you don't want to do that. You want to go out there feeling good, because there's so many of those other things going on. The stress of the competition, the nerves, all of it. Like, man, don't hinder yourself by being dehydrated for sure. It's not a good idea. And I've seen it go bad, really bad. And yeah, again, especially at the lower levels, like, yeah, okay, if you're competing at Abu Dhabi, that's a different story. You're weighing in the day before. You've got time to rehydrate. And I don't know if this is true or not, but my friend who was talking about, the IV and, what they would do in the Olympics, I don't even think they allow that in the UFC anymore. And it's very dangerous, especially fighting, right? Being dehydrated. And, again, day in weigh-ins, but he told me, he's like, man, the most I can put back on in water weight through my stomach is 10 pounds. And he was probably a middleweight guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm sure some of this is going to be different depending on your size. I mean, obviously for, ultra heavyweight, dropping down, the amount of weight that you can float is a lot more than, say, a lightweight female. You know what I mean? I mean, you got to consider percentage of your body too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the last thing you want to do is miss a couple meals, start starving yourself the week of, not eat, because you will feel like trash when you step out there, and you are defeating the whole purpose of cutting weight if you do that.
And if it were me, if I were going to cut weight, I would absolutely do it under the supervision of this guy. You know what I mean? Find a professional. If you're going to do it, man, even I mean, I don't know what a consulting fee is, but even just, hey, I got 2 weeks. What's the plan, Mike? And he'll lay it out. Boom, here you go. Like, here's what you need to eat. This is your body. You know, check your body fat percentage, all that stuff, and see what you can healthily do. And then, you know, then you're going with an educated, you know, approach as opposed to what you're reading on the internet. Man, like, yeah, don't take my word for it. Take his. You know what I mean? Like, so that's what I would say personally. And that's, again, I'm a jiu-jitsu coach, and I've competed and I've cut weight, and just personally at this point, like, if I want to go to a lower weight class, I'm gonna plan months ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make sure when I step on that scale, I'm gonna hit that weight and I'm gonna be fully hydrated, because tournaments especially. I mean, you know, some of these competitions, man, you got, you know, like the one coming up now, it's a round robin. You got at least 4 matches, minimum.
A lot of matches. Yeah, you're gonna have people coming out of state. You know, it's a big tournament. Yeah. And and another thing that, you know, probably common knowledge here too, is train.
Yeah.
You got to train.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to help your cardio. It's going to help your weight loss. It's going to help your jiu-jitsu. So don't forget the most obvious thing. Train. Show up.
Yeah, your sport-specific training, absolutely. You know, I tell the guys all the time, if they're going into 5-minute matches, do everything in 5-minute intervals.
Yeah.
Even if you're training like, you know, doing a workout routine that's not jiu-jitsu specific, you know, for your cardio, whatever.
Yeah.
I would say, man, get yourself
training.
Yes.
Yeah.
5-minute intervals. Get yourself used to that time frame. Eat in 5-minute intervals. Sleep. I'm kidding. but your brain gets used to that time frame. So if your matches, you know, your matches are going to be 8 minutes, train in 8-minute intervals. You know what I mean? Be as specific as you can. And that's a little bit off the subject to a certain degree, but again, it's not. You know what I mean? You're gonna prepare yourself properly for that time frame and that energy output that you need for 8 minute or 5-minute or whatever it is.
Exactly right.
So that's just my advice. But again, I would, if you're going to plan on dropping more than 5 to 10 pounds, plan ahead. Get somebody who's a professional who knows how to do it properly, not the, you know, YouTube experts, right? You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of experts actually on you, but sometimes hard to filter through.
Yeah.
Find somebody who knows what they're doing. Reach out to Mike. He's on Instagram. What's your Instagram?
Effort-based training.
Effort-based training. Follow him. Yeah. Anything else?
I think that covers it.
Yeah. Be safe. Train hard. Train smart. And stay hydrated.
Absolutely.